Okay, this is drawings 78 through 85, this daily drawing project I've been doing on my Instagram. The first one, this one, is a Boston Terrier that someone requested off my Patreon. Yeah, it's pretty fun to do. I've done this a couple of times where I'll draw, someone will give me the name of a breed of dog, and I'll do, get a couple of pictures off Google image search and, get the pencil drawing down pretty good. And then, because I can't really look at my phone while I'm making these videos, so I just kind of sort of try to remember what the colors look like rather than, I don't print anything out. But yeah, there's a finish. It's watercolor, gouache on top of an ink drawing. This one is like a futuristic psychic warrior guy, thinking maybe like in the world of the Wrenchies or It Will All Hurt. And I just ink these with one of these Faber-Castell Pitt pens. Usually, sometimes I'll use a brush, but it's been a while. I mostly use these for these drawings anyway. Mostly use these things to get some black lines laid down. And then try to erase most of the pencil stuff. Sometimes I leave a little bit here and there just to give it a little extra tone or something. But sometimes I'll work the whole thing in pencil. But lately I've just been doing these with a pen. And then I add like some gouache on top of that usually. Sometimes I'll do like ink washes in between. So, and then occasionally even if I was doing more like an illustration, I guess, I might even add some like colored pencil or something to certain areas. This one was requested of me on my Patreon. Someone asked me to do a mashup of some He-Man characters. I guess the villains from Masters of the Universe. I used to watch that cartoon as a kid, so it seemed like a fun thing to try to do. So I kind of mostly modeled them off Skeletor, and then added a few elements from some of the other villains, and kind of made up some stuff too. But I kind of see him being like a villain in one of my comics, like It Will All Hurt or something. I don't know, maybe if I do another volume, I'll use this guy as a model. And here I've been using these like little brushes lately instead of I used to just use the Raphael brushes, like once they were not as good of a point anymore from inking, but I just decided to get some actual watercolor brushes that were pretty small, and they're like a little springier, so you can get a little, where I can anyway, I can get a little more detail than I can with like a softer brush. And yeah, it's there's the finish there. And this one was suggested to me by a Patreon subscriber as well. And they just said, draw a robot detective. So I just kind of looked at some pictures of, I basically drew like this sketch of this kind of robot dude in a suit with a gun. But then I looked at some pictures of True Detective, and I noticed there was like a little badge in one of the pictures. There's like a badge poking out from like the suit jacket, and I was like, oh, I'll put that little detail in there. And I think that kind of made that drawing. Plus, there's a little dog in it. So this one is just like I keep doing. I never like skateboarded really, but I keep doing drawings of kids on flying skateboards. I've done a few. I shouldn't say I keep doing it. It's like I'm not compelled to do that necessarily. But there was, I just added some these sort of like Miyazaki flying shark kind of things, and I stained somehow. I don't know, that sometimes the paper, it depends on what paper I'm using, I guess. But this paper, I think there was something on the back of it, or maybe it just got too saturated. But it yeah, kind of stained the paper, but then I ended up applying this sort of like thick orange gouache layer to it to try to cover it up. And I was like, oh, I like the way that looks. So I'm just kind of use that as like a background, like a sunset kind of thing. And then those clouds were kind of just sort of spontaneous. I wasn't even thinking about there being clouds there, but when I was applying the gouache, I'm like, oh, it's kind of, I could kind of do like a little cloud thing in the horizon. So I don't know. It's kind of, I feel like I learned something by doing that. And then this one was a character from my series Pop Gun War. He's like the main villain in both volumes. King Doll is the name of him, and he has these like little robot puppets that he controls and sends out to do stuff that don't really end up doing anything all that bad. I mean, I guess he abducted children in the first volume, but he's kind of a enigmatic figure because it's like, well, I don't really. He doesn't seem like he's up to anything that's that terrible, but just kind of an annoying character, I guess. Like most of my characters are, but yeah, it's I based this guy off a guy that I knew when I lived in New York, and yeah, he made like puppets and stuff, just physically. I mean, not personality wise. He was a nice guy, but this I don't know. I've been kind of recycling some of the same photographs, reference photographs from like 20 years ago for this thing. Maybe not quite that long ago, but somewhere around then. Yeah, and so I'm just kind of watercoloring here on top of the sky, and I think that lightning bolt was, a gouache yellow. I might have even used some ink washes for his suit. There was a few layers that I applied though for sure to get that dark. Again, it's never that easy for me to go like super dark on a black when I'm using watercolor. I guess I'm using it too translucently. I don't know. It's kind of a weird in between that I'm not. It takes me a while. I just keep adding on layers to get it deeper. I guess that's the way most people do it, but it just sometimes feels a little time consuming. So these are supposed to be 20 minutes, but I usually take like a couple hours on them. This next one, it's kind of a similar character to the last one. This guy I just called the Bagman, and he's the villain in Proxima Centauri, or one of the villains in Proxima Centauri. Really looks like the world, and Sherwood is kind of his own villain, but this is one of the antagonists that pops up, and yeah, he's, like I said, he's kind of similar to the last one, where he has these little robots that all come out of this bag that he carries around, and they get up to gross stuff, like they crawled up Sherwood's nose and down his throat and stuff, and he had to do some magic spell to get rid of him. And yeah, the bag is sort of like this little dimensional pocket thing where it just kind of goes on forever. It's like another universe in there. And yeah, this next guy is just like a mutant troll wizard warrior guy that I just kind of sketched out. I think I was looking at some drawings on Instagram and kind of got inspired to do some weird fantasy character, and I decided to ink this one with a brush. And yeah, I had a newer. I hadn't really used this brush that much, but since I bought it, it's a Raphael 8404 number 4, which is what I've been kind of learned how to ink comics with, and used it for years until I started just using these pet pens more often. But yeah, I haven't done one in a brush in a bit, so I decided to he seemed fitting for this character to do one. And then I did some layers of ink wash, just black India ink, and then I added some watercolor there at the end, went in with like the face and the gloves, and acts and stuff. And that's the last drawing for this week. Thanks for watching. I'm doing the daily drawings over on my Instagram.